Good morning, traders. I am Emily Advani, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Tuesday, October 7th. We are coming off a record-setting session to start the week yesterday, even as broader markets ended mixed. The S&P 500 and NASDAQ both notched all-time highs. The S&P 500 gained 24 points to close at 6,740 points, while the NASDAQ climbed 161 points, finishing at 22,941 points. The Dow, however, struggled for direction throughout the day and ultimately slipped 63 points by the close. Bill, let's get into today's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Markets are kind of flat. We're running between positive, negative. Currently, we're down 0.01 to up 0.06. So we're just fluctuating this morning. Because it's kind of a quiet session, but you gotta keep focusing on the shutdown, the government shutdown, and there are no significant talks happening right now. However, there are some indications that Republicans may be willing to agree to Democratic requests, particularly regarding the continuation of healthcare subsidies under the Affordable Care Act. So, we could get something there. On the 10th, that's when the paychecks don't go out. And then on the 15th is when the military doesn't get paid. So, yeah, this has got to be fixed before the 15th, I would say. President Trump, he's scheduled to meet with the Prime Minister of Canada today. That could be something. White House is expected to announce a bailout package for farmers today. Because remember, China ceased all purchases of agricultural products because of the tariffs. I mean, in May, their purchase of soybeans went to zero. I mean, they just stopped it because the tariffs were just costing too much. A lot of corporate news going on. Tesla, they're expected to announce an update to their Model Y today. A major fire broke out at the facilities of a key Ford supplier, which is likely going to have negative effects on Ford production schedules. That's going to be an issue over the coming months. Couple analyst meetings going on today for Dell and Autodesk. NYSE, the owner, which is the ICE exchange, they're said to be in talks for, an investment and a predictive market platform. That's something there. On the earnings front, Stars Constellation Brands, STZ, that stock's trading higher after earnings. MKC delivered an earnings beat. That's all positive. And then we're kind of taking a look over Europe. The DAX was lower. It opened up lower, but it's since turned and positive. In fact, all of Europe is positive. You get the DAX up 31 points for 0.13%. Although factory orders did drop 0.8% in August, the markets were expecting a gain of 1.2%. So that was a big turnaround, but markets are higher in Germany. France is up 0.23% or 18 points. Luxury stocks are seeing some gains. Financial stocks are weakening. Got to be cautious there. And the FTSE in London is up 20 points or 0.22%. With some outperformance in oil stocks, so that's good. And then we're turning our attention over to Asia. Asia was very quiet. I mean, the only exchange really that was open was the Nikkei, and that climbed higher by 6 points. I mean, the action was muted. I mean, sentiment remains positive with that pro-stimulus politician ready to become the next prime minister of Japan. But, in terms of market action, volumes were weak because China was closed, Hong Kong was closed, and other markets were closed as well. They've got that golden week going on right now. So, yeah, we didn't see a whole lot of it action over in Europe overnight. And then we're turning our attention over to oil. Oil's flat. Got WTI trading $61.71 a barrel. You got Brent trading $65.50 a barrel. It was lower for the most today. Now it's trading a couple cents higher. But today after the bell, you got the American Petroleum Institute releasing their stockpile estimates for last week. The Energy Information Administration, they're not going to be releasing their report tomorrow. So this is going to be the only oil stockpile estimates out there. So yeah, you got to keep an eye on that API report that's coming out after the bell today. And that's what I have for you in terms of morning market update report, Emily.
Bill, as you mentioned, sort of quiet on most fronts today. Obviously, we're continuing to watch that government shutdown and any news there. But while that remains quiet, some of the other areas that move markets, like economic reports, remain quiet. But there are pockets of information that you've pointed to that are key to watch throughout the trading day, and a bunch of corporate headlines. We're going to get to more of those in just a moment. Before we get there, you did give us a little bit of a preview of some earnings action to point out. So, Bill, what is going on in terms of earnings?
I'm going to talk about McCormick, ticker MKC. They came out this morning. They did deliver a beat by 3 cents. You look at the stock this morning, it's up about 0.3%, which is, kind of muted, but that's positive. Could have some more gains to go. Constellation Brands, ticker STZ, Sam Tom Zebra, they beat by 22 cents on higher revenue. What'd they say? Beer sales are slowing. Beer sales are slowing. I kind of warned that yesterday, but you look at the stock this morning, it's higher by 3.29%. So Constellation Brands, nice report. But that's what I have for you in terms of earnings announcements hitting the tape, Emily.
Bill, you just used the word muted. When it comes to economic data, that area is certainly muted right now, but there's plenty of action on the Fed speak front. So let's dive in. Bill, what is going on in terms of economic events today?
Yeah, there's that New York inflation number coming out today at 11 a.m. That's one of them. It's a minor number, but it might get some attention. But realistically, it's about the Fed speak today because you got a lot of Fed speakers. At 10 a.m., you got Atlanta Fed Bank President Raphael Bostic speaking. Then at 10:05, you're going to hear from Fed Governor Michelle Baumann. Then at 10:30, you're going to hear from Fed Governor Stephen Moran. 11:30, Minneapolis Fed Bank President Neil Kashkari. And then at 4:05 p.m., Stephen Moran is going to give another speech. Now, yesterday, we heard from Kansas City Fed Bank President Jeffrey Schmidt, and he said that the Fed's current policy is in the right place, and it's only slightly restrictive. I mean, this guy remains on the hawkish end of the spectrum, and he acknowledged that the labor market has cooled, but he goes, hey, look at it historically. It's at healthy levels. You only wish we had these levels historically. So, he's not wrong. Moran's going to be pushing for, lower interest rates. He wants those rates, cut by like, 2 full percentage points, which is just not going to happen this year. But next year with the changes in Fed bank presidents, I mean, anything's a possibility. But that's what I have for you in terms of an economic update this morning, Emily.
Bill, you'll be watching all of that Fed speak using your NewsWare you have set up for Fed officials. Of course, you have one set up for that earnings action, and still you look at other market moving data and information. You did mention a lot going on the corporate front today. You're looking at things like merger news, guidance news, shareholders meetings, buyback news, and catalyst calls, watching your stocks group together like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks. So, Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
I'm looking at the market this morning, and I mean, maybe look at the Dow stocks. I got 19 lower, I got 11 higher. I'm looking at my FANG stocks, and honestly, they are weaker this morning. I mean, we are seeing some weakness. I would be surprised if the S&Ps do sell off a little bit today, but it's not. There's no real main one focus catalyst other than that we're at elevated levels for the S&Ps right now. But you look at some of the news behind the tape, like Amazon, that Prime Day sales event starts today. Now, the reason why this is important is because the sales data is going to be tracked closely, and you're going to be because it's an indication of what's going to happen in the holiday sales, much like the back to school sales. People watch the back to school sales as an indication of how holiday sales are going to be. They're also going to be looking at the Prime Day sales stats when it's over to see, any indications as to what might happen with the holiday sales. Google and Meta, they both got their price targets raised by a major broker this morning. That's positive. Um, what else we get? Tesla is expected to unveil a lower cost Model Y car today, about 10% lower is what I hear. Moving on to Dow Jones 30s, we got to talk IBM. IBM and Anthropic, they're in a partnership. Anthropic has Claude. Now, Claude is going to be integrated into select IBM products. Wow. IBM up 4% on this news. Wow, that's a big one. NVIDIA, NVDA, XAI is going to spend $18 billion to buy more NVIDIA chips for that colossal 2 AI, data center that they have. Well, this is one I find interesting. Walmart, WMT, William Michael Tom. Okay, Sam's Club members can purchase and can access 10 common generic meds at no cost. That's what I said, at no cost. So you're not really purchasing to get a new cost, but you do have to purchase a membership. And by purchasing a membership, you're going to go in the store. And by going in the store, you're probably going to, browse the aisles. So it actually makes a lot of sense. These are going to be the lower cost the generic meds, but that's a really smart move for Walmart. Watch, CVS will follow suit. In terms of like deals, merger news, Mars, they won unconditional EU antitrust approval for the buyout of that Kellanova deal. NYSE, ticker ICE, they're in talks for a $2 billion investment for a stake in Polymarket. Polymarket is a market prediction platform, cryptocurrency platform. Interesting. I don't know if it makes sense, but they're going to be investing $2 billion, and they got a lot of smart people over there. So apparently they feel it's a good idea. Constellation Brands, STZ, they backed their full year 2026 EPS to $11.30 to $11.60. Street estimate has it $11.44, right in the middle. So that's positive. In terms of shareholders events, Dell is hosting an invitation-only analyst event today. Starts at 9:30. And Autodesk, ADSK, they're having an analyst meeting today. It starts at 11:30 a.m. And that's what I have for you about news in the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. We've now made it to that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day. Bill, what is your pick of the day today?
I got to go with Verizon, ticker VZ, Victor Zebra. I mean, yesterday it hit the take that there's going to be a CEO change, and the stock sold off hard. Now it's a kind of an abrupt CEO change, but the guy's sticking with the company, which typically is a good sign. He's not going to be leaving overnight. He's just going to be moving onto a board seat for a while. So that's actually positive. But the stock really, truly underperformed yesterday. And I'm expecting a rebound today because they got a good guy coming in. And you look at the broker ratings; they're all very positive on the stock. And the last thing people cancel is their cell phone accounts. If times get bad. So, take a look at the option volume yesterday. 196,838 calls versus 96,104 calls. So 104 puts. That's 2-to-1. That's nice. Open interest 508K to 415K. Okay. But the fact is the major brokerage firms are raising price targets. They got positive ratings on the stock, and I do like it. I think this might have changed as a blip. I don't think it's going to change it. I don't think it's going to change the narrative on the stock, but I do think we're going to see some outperformance in Verizon today. And so, listen, if I can get in, 41.75, that would be great. And I'll just sit back and I'll count my 1% later today. But that's my pick of the day. Verizon, ticker VZ, Victor Zebra, Emily.
Verizon, it is looking for a rebound there after that CEO change. And in just a moment, we're going to see how yesterday's pick of the day worked out when we do a recap on that. So stick with us. But first, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our Hot Off the Press segment. Bill, take it away.
Okay, what do we see here? Dollar Tree down 4%. They get downgraded by a brokerage firm today. Stock's getting smoked. BK, Bank of New York Mellon, they're exploring tokenized deposits. ICE, Intercontinental Exchange, up 4% after confirming the Polymarket investment. SAS is considering Boeing 787-9 in addition to Airbus A350 fleet, executive said at a conference. Oracle was chosen by NATO's CCD COE for a private 5G network. SYY, it's Cisco, Sam Yellow. Teamsters in their San Francisco area, are planning to strike if they can't get a fair contract from management. Ticker SYY, under strike alert. Novo Nordisk, ticker NVO. These guys are laying off people at a manufacturing site in the U.S. Now, the manufacturing site in the U.S. is where they're producing that obesity drug and diabetes drug. That just seems a little out of character. Something's not right there. Biogen, ticker BIIB. Biogen and Etsy are launching an at-home injection option for Alzheimer's drug. AZN gets a positive announcement from its hypertension drug. Ford, major Ford supplier, will likely disrupt business for months. TMQ, Tom Michael Quinton, that's Trilogy Metals. U.S. acquires 10% stake in Trilogy Metals, according to the White House. Boeing and Northrop Grumman, they're on watch. The Pentagon will soon select, maybe this week, the defense company to design and build the Navy's next stealth fighter. That's what I see hitting the tape this morning, Emily.
Okay, Bill, before we get to another day of trading, let's do that check in on yesterday's pick of the day, which was General Motors. Now, Bill, you made this pick looking at the auto sector overall. There was that news yesterday that Asian auto companies were rallying because the prime minister had announced a stimulus plan. You were hoping that it would benefit sort of the entire sector yesterday, including GM. How did your call work out?
That's what I was hoping for. I was expecting, that rally in autos to continue. They were rallying in Japan, they were rallying in Europe, and but that didn't carry through. The stock just missed. I mean, opened up 59.94 and closed out at 58.19. I mean, it was a rare miss, but it was a miss. And GM didn't work out yesterday. I'll do better next time.
As you say, we live to trade another day. Sound logic there, just didn't work out. But we will check in with you tomorrow about today's Verizon pick of the day. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow and each weekday morning at NewsWare's Trade Talk when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Advani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.